Hello there, YouTube. Mr. Gibson Guy here. Thanks for coming by the channel. Today I'm going to talk about second time around here. Nearly 10 years ago, I made my first YouTube video on my then pretty new to me 2006 Triumph Bonneville T-100, and I had great success with that. I hadn't gotten but a few views here and there when I first started my channel, and that video real quickly ran up to 20,000 views, and that was pretty amazing to me. I didn't think anybody would ever watch a video that I made, or 20,000 people would watch it, but it was a very popular video. Since then I've had other videos that have surpassed that, but that was the first real success. And I was thinking about it, and what I want to do is now look back 10 years later and kind of do a progress report. And for people that missed it, the video is still online if you want to really dig down the bottom of the playlist, but it's out there somewhere. But I wanted to do some updates because I have done some updates. So I'll start that right here. When I got my 2006 Bonneville, I was really excited. I already had my Sportster, my Harley Davidson 883, but I had a lot of problems with that, and I was constantly getting it fixed up to where I wanted it to be. I got it for a real cheap price, but I could have bought a newer one, or a new one probably, for less than what I put into it, plus what I paid for it. And the Bonneville was not quite that same situation, but it was kind of expensive. It was messed up, and the problem is that there's not too many Triumph mechanics to really understand it. And just like with Harley, some people had messed with it, tried customizing things, doing stuff like that, and just messed up the whole motorcycle. Well, with the Harley, it ended when I took it to a place in Del Rey, and they took the thing apart, pulled the whole wiring harness off, put a new wiring harness in, and rewired the whole motorcycle. And ever since then, the Sportster has been just a miracle bike. You can't kill it. It just runs and runs and runs, and nothing ever stops it. But the Triumph, I never really had that luck. I went through so many mechanics, and every mechanic would get it fixed for about a week or two, and it would run great, and then all of a sudden it just wouldn't start one day, and I would take it to another mechanic and they get it going, and it was running great, and it was going, and I was excited about it, and after a week or two it won't start anymore. It just wasn't going to start. Don't say it was a battery. I went through lots of batteries and all sorts of stuff. But I loved the Bonneville, but I dreaded taking it anywhere. I would drive it around the neighborhood or around town a little bit, but I didn't want to turn it off because it probably wouldn't start again. But I knew that this was a really, really well-made, long-lasting motorcycle. So finally I retired and I moved out of South Florida, and I moved up to where I am now in Citrus County, and our next door neighbors are Hernando County, and there's a motorcycle shop, because I used to live in that area 20 years before, but when I retired I moved up near there, but there was a motorcycle shop called Motorcycle Enthusiast, which after I had moved away the first time became a Triumph dealer. And when I moved back up here, they were just kind of finishing up on being Triumph dealers because some problems that they had. Triumph said getting pretty big for their britches, and they're like, all right, well, you got to buy $100,000 worth of stock to be a dealership. And he's like, I can sell about a dozen bikes a year of Triumphs. There's not a big market for them in this area. So he parted ways, but he still helped out, because he had a Triumph mechanic, he still helped out us Triumph owners. And I took my bike there, and it stayed there for the better part of a year. I just got new tags on it, and before I got it, another new tags came out. And so it sat there for a long, long time while they tried to sort out this and sort out that. And then finally what happened was I went to the owner and I reminded him of something that I had told him long ago, but he had forgotten. And I said that when I first got the bike, the Speedo and tack had been smashed on it. It's part of the reason that I could actually get a Triumph Bonneville, because it's hard to buy a new one or a used one, hard to find any, in those days anyway. But so I had taken it to a place where I had gotten the Ride with the Wind Speedo and tack unit, which looks like Smith's Instruments. I'll show you when I take you on the tour here again. But they had wired it in, but really didn't know what they were doing. So I had suspected from the very beginning, because this is what happened when I first got the bike. When I had to replace that stuff, I started having problems with it. And everybody could kind of get it working, but it wouldn't keep working. And so he said, well, that tells me something. And he went and told his mechanic. And a few days later, they called me and said, your bike's done after a year. It's all finished, and it should work from now on. And it turned out that a couple of wires that were up here had gotten switched. And the bike would still run, but it wouldn't start. And they changed that. And now, that's why this is important at this point. Now I have had the bike back for over a year, and I have never had it fail to start for me since they got it back. So when I took it to the Triumph dealer, and eventually we figured out what had gone wrong on it, the bike got fixed, and it's been fixed ever since. And now my Sportster and my Bonneville both are fully functional bikes all the time, and I can always count on them to go. The BMW, not so much yet, but that's next on the list. But I'm going to take you on just a little tour, because the idea that I customized this Bonneville with was that I want it to be a bike which looks classic, but it has a modern engine and modern performance and modern reliability. And the bike didn't, but it now does. So, don't trip over the tripod here. Take you on a little tour from front to back here. Now, typical of any classic Triumph, has a great big headlight on it. And then I got the rubber gaiters on the front forks. That was optional. The ones that were on it were all torn up. Now, I'll mention something historic for Triumph, and that was in the late 60s, about 69, I think. Triumph came out with a small, about this tall, oil cooler that they put on the front fork right under the headlight. And then they had some routing back, some from both sides, some oil lines, so that because it was dry sump, it had an oil pump, so it would pump cool oil through the engine and to the cylinder heads and through the crankcase and then back up to the oil cooler. And that makes the new Bonnevilles historically accurate, because these came with, you can see it's bigger, but this is quite a bit bigger because it was only about that big before. This is the oil cooler. It goes over here and then has its radiator here. And these are the original air and oil cooled Triumphs, like the late 60s and early 70s Bonnevilles were. First they put it on the Bonneville, then they put it on the others. You got some sort of an electric diode here that's a heat sink to put away heat from the electric system. But they had an oil cooler there. So now they have it. And so that's not something that is not non-historic. Next, a lot of people like these things because the instruments that came with the motorcycle were really ugly. And I'd seen them on quite a few Italian bikes too. They just bought them from somewhere. But these are, as I said, Ride with the Wind, I think was the title of it. And these look just like the original Smiths, except that they have stainless steel tubing around them. And the Smiths were black. But I'll tell you something. When all the time I was having problems with the Triumph, and I love these instruments, but I had problems with these instruments. Like if you're cruising for a while, you're going on a trip somewhere and you go about 40 miles, your speedo is going okay, but then all of a sudden, without accelerating or anything like that, the needle on the speedometer keeps jumping up to 100 or 110 or 120, back and down and back and down and back and down, and you're still going 60. But it did that for a long time, and the speedo gave up. And after I had the work done, these things have worked perfectly ever since. So that was definitely part of the problem with the bike. This bike has the regular Triumph low-rise bars that you would expect. And it has a brake reservoir up here, but basically, unlike most motorcycles today, the handlebars are relatively unadorned, just a brake and a clutch and a few cables for throttle, and that's about it. But those are pretty simpleton. More modern bikes have these, well, they have a lot more to them than that. Then this has been real popular with people, the painting and tin work on the fuel tank. This let's see, we have a hand-done gold paint job on this, dual stripes, ram's horn kind of a thing, fuel tank. Some people originally didn't like the new Bonneville fuel tanks because there's a lip down here where the seam where the tank is welded together. And they don't like that. They like what was rounded off and didn't have this seam on it, which is barely even noticeable. What they liked was the big seam right down the middle of the tank that they thought was just quaint or period correct. I always hated that seam down the middle, and I think they had a lot of problems with it, so I don't mind the little seam down at the bottom of the tank. And the tank doesn't leak, holds gas. You have Cahian carburetors that replace the original amyls that were so much of a problem with the bike. This looks like it's an oil tank, but actually it's a cover where, I don't think you can see it. No, you can't see, it's not light enough here. I have pod air filters for both of the carburetors back there, not the old air boxes that these bikes came with. Also, featuring on this, they did a beautiful job with this engine. One thing that was the downer for me on this bike when I got it was that Triumph had done a good job of using aluminum for the head and steel barrels here, which were painted black like they should be. But this, notice, looks like it's natural finish, but you see it's really painted on there. And the original ones of these had natural finish on the heads, camshaft covers there, and it looked really great. This is basically the outline of the cylinder heads and the whole cylinder configuration of the old Bonnevilles and the old Triumph engines, the Edwin Turner twins, but it's double overhead cam and 4 valves per cylinder for 2 cylinders. And then we have this fake transmission in this pre-unit construction. Actually, it's only where the drive gear goes. The front shaft, or front sprocket. And so it looks like it's a separate engine and transmission, but it actually is one piece, and it's on the other side. Then we have slightly laid down shocks here with exposed springs that are, of course, The original Triumphs had covered springs on them, and I think next to the instruments, or maybe more than that, what's been a big deal is the mufflers that are on here. These are not really much of any muffler here, just a pipe, and they're on both sides, but the original ones came way out past the end of the back tire. These are shorter and more in line with what was on the original Bonnevilles. Some people complained about this right here. They just couldn't stand this. There was a crook from the exhaust manifold going here, then coming up and going into the muffler here, and some people really had a fit about this. But if you look in early Triumph history, you'll see that was common on the Speed Twin. They had the crook there too. By the 60s, they had kind of done away with that, but that was not original Triumph. And then we're moving to the rear. Tail lights and turn signals are the same that I had on before. Oh, that was something I was going to mention. Notice the fender here has a painted black fender. It's a little bit dirty right now. And up in front, I have the chrome fender. But I did do some research and I found that I think 69, this was an official color code for one of the Bonnevilles, which was the black and cream with a black glossy rear fender and a chrome alloy front fender. And that's what this bike has. And here is the last thing I'm going to show you on this today is this is unusual to Triumph, to new Triumphs, because what you see there, I don't know if you can see it up closely or not, but it's all an embossment in there. It's stamped in there, and it has sides around it. This was all hand done by a friend of mine with a gold art marker, just like a pen. You shake it up, and it just comes out with gold lettering. And this was done almost 5 years ago, and it hasn't cracked, it hasn't split, it hasn't peeled, it hasn't done anything. It just stays on there. So I spent a couple bucks on a gold marker, and I have run into so many people with new Triumphs that say, "How'd you get that gold lettering on your seat?" I put it there. That's all there was to it. And you could get it in white if you wanted to do it in white too. The gold looks great. But this isn't even hard to do, and it looks fantastic. I have some pictures that I've taken at motorcycle shows of Triumphs where I took pictures of the Triumph brand on the back of the seat, and none of them look this good. Of course, they're all really old. Originally, it was done with a silk screen. They just put a thing across it and spray painted it, and that was it. But this is done this way. So, done by hand and completely balanced. It looks great. I figured it would last 6 months if I was lucky, but it's probably going to last more than my lifetime. And it looks great. So this is my bike, my 2006 Bonneville T-100, that whenever anybody sees, when I take it out, every time I come to a stoplight, somebody goes, "Hey, what year is it?" Because everybody thinks it's from the 60s or 70s. But it's not. It's from the 2000s. And now, fortunately, it runs like one too. So, what do you think? Do you have a Bonneville? Do you want to get a Bonneville? They are amazing bikes. They are just wonderful to ride. And I have. I won't mention this too close to the Harley, but it is my favorite bike. And no doubt about it. Just nothing else compares to it. It's smooth running, it's powerful, it runs great, it sounds great, it gets unbelievable attention. And of all my bikes I've had, nothing comes close to riding the Triumph. It's really amazing. But how about you? Do you have a Triumph? Do you want to have a Triumph? Are you interested in some videos on more of the company history and some of the ancient history of the original Triumph company? Pictures of different Triumphs through development through the decades and through the century and now well beyond. This company is as old as Harley Davidson, and they're still going. Well, they're going again after a bit of a break. Really, their break was only about 5 years, but it seemed like about 15 that there was no Triumph. But we have it. So leave me a comment, give me a like if you like this video, and I hope you found this enjoyable, educational, and that you're ready to go out and look for a Triumph yourself, because they are great motorcycles. So until next time, this is Mr. Gibson Guy, and I'm out of here. Bye-bye.